Thanks so much for being with us on News Center Maine Plus. I'm Brian Yacono. As technology rapidly changes around us, it can be difficult to keep up with, especially at work. Tech expert and CEO of Uprise Partners, Melinda Gagnon, joins us once again to have a conversation about technology. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You come with an interesting perspective. You're a business owner in the tech industry, so you have employees and you're studying tech. But what are you seeing in terms of changes when it comes to our work with technology?
The biggest change that has happened in the last 5 years is we've had a huge shift from everyone working in the office to people working remotely, and now the pendulum is switching back.
You are seeing that change?
Yes, absolutely. So we're seeing companies adjust to a hybrid type of schedule, so that's some days in office, some days remote. And some companies, and the big names that we see, Google, Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, they are doing a complete return to office type of policy. So this has been the biggest shift in how we work, and that has required technology to adapt with that. And it's really, I think, what happened with COVID, with businesses having to go remote, being forced to be remote, accelerated our technology timeline by about 20 years in terms of the rapid adoption of different technologies.
So it shouldn't feel weird. It feels this is all happening quickly.
It is happening
quickly.
Tremendously fast. Yes.
What are you seeing that we're using more of in terms of technology that's been expedited, if you will?
So a couple of things that are really key. So one is how we store and share information has had to change. So if you think of everyone being in the office, they would be on that office network and access all of that information. Security is different that way. The way files are structured can be different that way. So when people are remote, you now have a different need for that structure, a different way of storing your files, right? A different way of allowing your team to securely access that information, whether they're in the office or whether they're working from home or some other location. So that has been a big shift. To have a team that is remote and still have all of your information secure and easily accessible is absolutely possible. It just is different. So that's a big change. Another way is how we communicate. We've seen a big uptick in tools like Microsoft Teams. People may be familiar with Slack, but these types of platforms that allow for real-time chat and communication. They also now have video conferencing capabilities, just calling capabilities. You can share files that way as well. So these tools really empower people to simulate an in-office environment and simulate that speed of communication, similar to how it would be if you were in person. And using those tools and setting them up in the right way takes a lot of thought and effort, but once you get it to where you need it to be, it's truly transformative for a team.
Thinking back to the early days of the pandemic, when I think most of us started experiencing the idea of hybrid or remote work, that seemed to be that constant problem of, I can't access that file, or I can't get this. So smoothing out that process has made business a little easier, it seems, for a lot of people. So how do we keep up with these changes now? A number of people you mentioned likely know Teams and Slack, but certainly there's a lot of resources out there. So how should we be keeping up with the changes there?
I think the best way to keep up, the first thing is to identify the need. Talk to your team. Where are their pain points? Find out what is slowing them down. What's frustrating, who needs to work together that maybe it's not facilitated in the best way. So I always like to start with the business need and the need of the team, and then figure out how technology could assist that. And it's never only a technology solution. It's a technology solution coupled with a process that the team has to adopt. It might be a policy that comes into place. So it really has to start with people and what they need to work better. So once you've identified those gaps or those pain points, then it's a matter of doing some research, talking with your tech partner, a tech team, because there are so many ways of solving some of these common problems, and it's really a matter of finding what works best for your organization.
I would imagine we've seen a real lean on the tech industry to figure this out. Of maybe a business had one IT person, if you will, in their business, and now they're saying, I need a lot more help with this. That part has probably grown a lot.
It has, and in our work at Uprise Partners, we do a lot of consulting with our customers that are thinking about these challenges around, for example, how do we set up Microsoft Teams in the best way that we can communicate effectively? It sounds very simple to set up Teams. You set up your Teams is confusing because the application is called Teams, but within it you have teams, and within a team you have channels. You can set that up pretty easily and quickly. However, it's all connected at the back end with different groups and permissions. That also replicates your file storing structure and things like that. So it's all interwoven, and it's actually great that it is built that way, and it's very powerful. But you also can kind of get yourself into a situation, if you set it up quickly or without a plan, that it's very cumbersome and confusing to navigate. So we do a lot with that. And the other thing that we talk a lot about is this very issue about how do we store files? Who has access to what? When Sally's working from home, can she still access everything that she needs similarly to when she's in the office? So these are the two common things that we're really constantly working with our customers on.
And should she be able to, based on all the whole other security factor, right?
Right.
Is all part of that dialogue. So
Yes.
being thoughtful about how we're setting it up is probably a big thing. We've experienced that just in our office a little bit of restructuring teams of, how should these channels be working? Is it effective? And so much more efficient, I think, to set it up the way your team needs it initially, then go back and change it. I'm curious a little bit of, when we talk about artificial intelligence and that role in our jobs, when we talk about efficiency, what would be your message to employers and employees about, let's dabble in some of this technology now to make our jobs more efficient?
AI is definitely changing how we work in a pretty profound way. And the biggest thing I would say for any leader of a team or a team member is to look at it like your superpower. How is it going to help you do what you do more quickly? That's the first place to start. And as an organization, it's a great idea to have a policy about AI. How do you want your team to use it? Which tools do you want them to use? And ensure that one, you have a protocol in place, basically, and I'll give an example. So ChatGPT. Anyone can use that tool for free. But if I go into the free version of ChatGPT and enter something in, that goes into their model that contributes to everyone else's answers. So what's the likelihood of my specific information being surfaced exactly how I put that in? Well, highly unlikely. However, it is contributing to that massive data set. Yeah. Yes. So what you can do as an organization, if you say, well, this is a powerful tool, and it is, that we want to use, we either need a policy and to educate our team on, you may use this, but only for this type of information, meaning nothing that's sensitive, nothing that's confidential, and trust that your team understands that and will do it. If that seems tricky, right, or you want them to be able to, for example, input a financial statement and do an analysis, then you can buy a subscription to ChatGPT, and then the information that you put in is in your company's profile, and that information won't be shared outside of that. Now, there is more to talk about of what you want to share that the rest of your organization may have access to. That's also something to consider. But the first step is, what are the tools? How do you want people to start using it? And you can start very simply, because there is an element of experimentation that has to go on with this at first.
Play around with it a little bit.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
knowing that there's an option to keep it a little more reined in. And just finally, I'm curious with the kind of dabbling in AI and assisting the work we're doing, fears of employees thinking, okay, we're trying this, and eventually this is going to replace my job. How do we navigate that dynamic of I want to learn more, but I'm fearful of what this will mean for me?
Look at it as a tool. So think about someone who used to use a typewriter and then they moved to word processing, right? Microsoft Word. Think about that transformation. This is another tool that we're using. So anyone who's starting to use AI to do their day-to-day job, think about how does this tool make me more effective? How do I create more value? And that's really the key question for anyone. And I would say this to anyone if we're having a conversation about building a career, regardless of technology. How do I deliver value? AI is a wonderful way to do that. It's one of the many ways to do that. So if that's what you're thinking about day in, day out, AI is only going to help you advance your career and do what you do even better.
What's my value to the team?
Yeah.
Good message for all of us. Melinda, the CEO of Uprise Partners, great to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for the conversation. And thank you, of course, for joining us on News Center Maine Plus.